Your show's rubbish.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. I'm not going to sing the whole thing because
Please don't.
If there's anything more awkward than someone singing happy birthday in person, it's over fucking Skype.
Do you know what the most awkward thing is? When you're in a restaurant as a kid and like your parents have organised for the waiters to come over, sing happy birthday, and they don't want to be doing it. They're feeling awkward. I'm feeling so awkward around me. I mean, it's a nice thing to do, but yeah. Anyway, it's not my birthday, I should say. It was my birthday yesterday.
Yeah. How old were you?
I was 28.
And you look great.
I look great for it. I was 36 years young, as they say.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, are you using any collagen, any Botox, any? What are your rules to staying young?
well, I'll tell you, is drink a lot of green tea.
Yeah, and whiskey as well. Would you have that?
No brandy though. Brandy. No, I don't. I only drink brandy on special occasions.
Today?
Yesterday, I did have a bottle of wine to myself in my flat.
Treat yourself.
Yeah. So it was.
But you added an extra £2 to that bottle.
£2.
As the standard 7, you went for the 9.
Oh yeah.
The mid-range.
I do like a £9 bottle of wine. That's true. £6 too cheap. £11, no, it's too much. £9. That's like, so the best is if it's 11 reduced to 9, and then I
That's
get
my favourite price. That is my favourite price.
You don't drink wine that much, do you?
No.
You said you've been drinking more wine recently, including red wine.
Found this wine app, mate. Wine app. It's the future. 40-minute delivery for wine.
Yeah.
40 minutes. Happy little chipper bloke comes to your shop, comes to your door, and he goes, "Hey, enjoy."
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, it depends on the quality of the wine. Like, I could get wine in under 40 minutes if I walked to my supermarket. I could just buy some.
No need for that, mate. Get it delivered.
Like you're saying this as if it's a new thing. Like internet shopping's been around for.
Not like this. Not like this.
No, it has, mate.
You can see him appearing. I mean, I know that's Deliveroo essentially, isn't it? It's just there's something so satisfying about the Deliveroo and all these home delivery apps. Just that you get to see a little cyclist fella just like on a map.
Yeah, we're not sponsored, so I don't want to give free publicity to about 5 people who are listening.
Wine app can sponsor us.
No
qualms about that.
Deliveroo also could sponsor us because I'm a big fan. Like, they are so quick. Like, if you order before Deliveroo, order from a restaurant, it could take an hour. So they'll say 20 minutes before you order, and you can see them on a map, as you say, and you know where they are, and 20 minutes, it's always there on time. So Deliveroo, if you're listening, CEO of Deliveroo or Wine App,
imagine if they did the same thing on...
We are available for sponsorship deals. I must stress, we will insist on 6 figures. So
yeah,
what you're saying.
You're right, Gary. I want to introduce the audience to hello and welcome to Cook and Ball Stories.
Okay, are we doing this backwards? Shall we introduce the show first?
That's what it could have been called that.
Oh, I see. Oh, you're doing a
potential title.
Welcome to His Little Legs. No, that definitely wouldn't have worked. That's the worst one because it's a saying anyway. It's kind of a saying. It's nearly a saying anyway. Wouldn't have worked.
Right. I apologise. I retract the
That's okay.
ignorance of my.
That's okay.
But the one we did settle on.
Albanian family forgive you.
The actual title.
Wait, yeah, Mars. We had this thing. I can't even remember how it started, and it's not like in a dirty way. When I say this, it'll sound like it's not at all. But there was just this when we were doing the radio.
There was a brothel and sauna and.
No, there was a family of beavers, and they were like toy beavers, and just a family, and
You
I did
need to preface everything you're saying because
No,
that's
I am. I did a feature on it on air, and the next week, which was our last week on air, I think, I bought Miles a picture of and I just showed it to him when he was in the middle of a sentence, and he kind of collapsed laughing. And they're kind of these Sylvanian things. I don't know if you've heard of them. So Miles, for my birthday, just no letter, no cards, no explanation, just this box of 2 Sylvanian family little rabbits or something like that. We were discussing what they are, but they're not the beavers. The beavers were sold out. So
the Waters family of beavers was sold out. You try and find a Waters family of beavers online, and I'll pay that listener ₹2. It was
FLJS even listened to the B side of each beaver.
It was your birthday. No, it's the way I like to do it. Amazon had already packaged that up for me, so I don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, no, it's good. So yeah, I mean, that is rare because Miles has never bought me a birthday present. I've only bought him one for his 30th, to be fair, but he doesn't even usually text happy birthday. But he texts happy birthday and got me these. So I think when I opened it, I just messaged him, "You fucking little twat."
I wouldn't have it any other way.
I meant it in a nice way, like, because what a stupid present, but it's funny.
They're called Seaside Friends as well. We'll tweet a picture of Gary's present that I got him, but they're called Seaside Friends, and I thought that's a nice little way that we could, talk about. It's like us, isn't it? That little rabbit and that little squirrel.
Well, in the sense that we've both got functioning bodies. I don't know what, like,
we met at the seaside, and so did those animals.
We did, absolutely. But Miles, listen, enough is enough. Let's get on with the show. Now, the show we're doing today is episode 16.
Whoa. Before you even get to that, we haven't introduced the show.
No, I'm going to... Oh, yeah, it's D Trout Spinners.
It's called the D Trout Spinners podcast with Miles Fennell.
Because you sung Happy Birthday at the beginning. We forgot.
Yeah, well, we're 7 minutes in. Let's move on. Gary Forrester was also there, by the way.
I am 36 years old.
Yeah.
And so, yes, this is episode 16 of season 2, or series 2. I don't like to say season, but series 2. American. And Miles is going to now do a little précis, a little summary of what happened in the show.
You're absolutely right. It's the season.
Oh God, that's terrible. I would say cut that out usually, but it was quite funny, so leave it in. So Miles now is going to do a little summary of the show in the style of the D Trout Spinners, because this is what we do.
Yeah. Season 2, episode 16, as previously stated, 7th of December 2002. Carl has a screen test for MTV. Ricky and Steve educate Carl by reading him 2 fictitious stories which demonstrate how gullible Carl is reading internet material. I'll be posting a link to the original episode from Podrot, and you can listen to that, and then you can come back to the show.
And I just say Podrot is like an amazing site. He's literally, it's this guy. He's put up every show, every XFM show. You can download it. He's also got other shows, hasn't he? Like, he's got the series 1 of the XFM shows. He's got some other
Adam and Joe.
Literally the full show of every single show. So if you also listen to today's show, but if you want to download, I would suggest going to Podrot, downloading the whole season 2, and then kind of listening through. But yeah. Anyway, so
initial thoughts. Let's lay it out now. Initial thoughts of this episode, because I was excited about talking about this episode today.
Yeah. Mars texted me saying it was one of his favourite ever episodes. So I think it's a good show, a very good show. There's a lot of good quotes. There isn't really any chat in this episode that I find that I want to skip. Some episodes has got some bits I want to skip. This episode isn't. The thing I particularly like about this episode, any episode where Ricky and Steve are kind of getting Carl to have screen tests or trying to push him onto TV and things that he doesn't want to do, like, they're always funny to me. This is very funny because Ricky comes back laughing from the song quite a few times, like, and he's just like, if only, like, if you could see what we're doing off there, he's having his little screen test and things. So I would have loved to have sat in on this show, and there's a lot of good quotes. So that's kind of what I think. It's up there in my top it's probably in my top 10 of this series. What are your thoughts, mate? Because I know you love it, don't you?
Yeah, I do. I think it's anything when you've got Carl under pressure. Just I would listen to anything if anyone's under pressure. I think that's when you get your best stuff. You get your most creative work and out of it. I really liked It kind of reminded me of that episode, when Carl. So we're gonna pay Carl. We're gonna pay Carl money to do stuff.
Yeah.
This is what like TV stuff. But also this is like this is quite a big show, like in terms of like Carl's career, because this is essentially what his first TV work.
Yeah, because he did go on to MTV a couple of times, didn't he?
It's true. I've watched them
and things. But that's a good point. That's a good point actually. That it's funny when Carl's under pressure. You're right. Like he's always under pressure with Ricky because he's just such a stressful person to be around. But in this show in particular, he's under pressure with the camera and like he says at one point, you said we could just get on my camera and bring it out and we just do it and send it to them. But obviously Ricky probably told Carl that, but then just invited an MTV official to come round and actually do a proper screen test.
You would shit yourself, wouldn't you? Like,
yeah,
someone's got a fucking camera.
Think about it. Like, what other show? Where else would you have someone getting a screen test for MTV or any TV station where they're also producing a radio show at the same time and presenting the radio show, and they're doing it in between, like that never would have happened. Only Ricky would have arranged that situation. Only Ricky would have done that, and it's brilliant.
So what I like about this episode, and particularly, is Carl's transparency and his approach to the screen test in general. The fact that he's worried about how much money he's going to get. At one point, he turns to the camera and he goes, "How much is it?" And you can just hear the end of it. And Ricky says, "I don't know, you get a few grand." And I'm like, "What? Grand?" But then also he says, "I've just bought this flat in central London. I wouldn't have bought the flat in central if MTV's in Camden, so I've got to commute there." The fact that he's thinking aloud on air about how he's gonna justify.
Most people just have those thoughts in their head, don't they? But they don't say them. But Carl not only says them, he says them on a radio show as well. It's not just even to friends. Doesn't that say something as well about Carl and how successful he was? Like we forget, like we think, oh, he was nothing, and then Ricky discovered him. But before, obviously, on the basis of the money that he'd already earned, he bought a flat in central London. Can you imagine how expensive that would be? Like, obviously it's 20 years ago, but still pro rata, it's going to be a lot. So he must have been earning very good money to buy that flat. I don't know what he was earning, but he did well for himself. Like, I know what you mean. It's Carl under pressure. That's a very good point. He's constantly under different pressures, but I think he deals with it pretty well. Like he deals with it well. But it's just like Ricky could have organised his screen test any day of the week, any hour, and he could have been just working on some jingles on a Friday or a Thursday, or not working at all. But he arranged it for the show. That's just that. But which is brilliant of Ricky, but very unfair on Carl.
This was also the start of do we need these? He didn't do a full episode.
He said the words, didn't he?
Yeah. What do you think of do we need them? Is that where does it land in your like feature list of Carl's?
Well, I don't know numerically where I'd rank it, but I really like it. I love the calls that Carl makes, and especially the one to the guy who's really pissed off. That's such a G. And I love Ricky saying to him afterwards, "What did he think he was doing?" Which is a great question. He didn't. What possibly did he think? There's this man who knows a bit about it's been rung up by a random person, just almost insulting him. Anyway, but yeah. So
when he says we've asked for opinions, so I'm telling you it.
Yeah, you've asked for opinions. I'm telling. We use that.
Yeah.
Between ourselves. I think it's do we need them? I really like do we need them. Well, let's not talk too much about do we need them, because we'll be talking about the individual do we need them as the show progresses. But it's interesting that it's coming up to Christmas. I don't know why I feel that, I don't know why I always seem like a watershed between January and Christmas. Like the January shows are brilliant. Like Hitler Has Just Moved His Queen. That's one of my favourite episodes. But it's just strange that it's coming up to Christmas, and I don't know why. I don't have anything else to add to that. But it's just strange that it's coming up to Christmas, and
But
it's
also,
not.
Carl's going to be off now for the next 2 weeks, isn't he? And Claire
No,
Sturgis steps in.
Oh yeah, because it was going to be 1 week, but his dad's ill.
Yeah.
So yeah, we now I know people get a bit. Some people don't like the Claire episodes as much, but they are good. You know, give it a try, and give our podcast next week a try, because don't just kind of write them off. I know some people get to a Claire episode, they just skip over it, but we found a lot to say in the Claire episodes last time, the sort of 2 in a row that they had before. And you know, this is a spoiler, but you know, and absolutely nothing has been arranged, but we are hoping to get Claire Sturgis on the show. So
promises.
I don't. Yeah, I'm the least, but I'm always calculating myself. But
something that is true in this episode, and it's funny we're talking about news. There's obviously a lot of news at the moment, but in April 1930 there was no news.
Yeah,
the announcer said there is no news. With that, the bulletin was over, and the remainder of the 15-minute slot, piano music was played, and it was Wagner opera Partiziful being performed by the Queen's Hall London, which is one of my favourite, which is one of my Wagners.
I've got the B-sides of each one of them, but which Carl describes as a music video, which I always feel like it's not a music, it's just music. Yeah, but
if it was like the first music video played, and it was the Buggles or whatever it was. That was the first one ever played on MTV.
The Buggles.
The video Killed the Radio Star. First music video played on air. True.
Oh, that is very. That's like a retronym or something like. I'm trying to think of. It's like a. It's quite profound that it's that, because that is a show that is about Video Killed the Radio Star and MTV's video. I didn't know that.
Probably planned it.
You're full of facts today, aren't you?
Yeah, I love them.
He loves when he's.
Actually, tell you what, talking about facts, or not facts. Ricky talks about the intelligent crabs and the babies forcing their way out of a vagina.
Oh yeah, we'll get to. Actually, can I just cut in here?
You may.
This is just a little. They talk about Celebrity Fact Club on air. I think Carl mentions it, and it always reminds me when we did. I know it's been done since, but actually when we did it, it hadn't been done. Like, it hadn't been kind of done like this. But we did a little feature called Fact Hunt, didn't we? And Miles had to hunt for facts or something that I had. But it's a bit naughty. But it just reminded me of that feature. I don't know why I'm self-indulging here, but as you say, Ricky and Steve. I've got some thoughts on that, actually. Should we get to that portion of the show now?
No, because I've got a feature, one of my features. You did a feature last week. It's my turn to do a feature.
It was my leap year feature, so one every 4 years.
I have to say, I listened back to it and I enjoyed it. All right.
The listeners have had 2 weeks to email in stories or to get in touch with stories, and why don't you just tell the ladies and gentlemen and FLJS why they've had 2 weeks? Basically, Miles prepped for the wrong show, and I got to the show before, and he put that out there. So if you're confused as to why it went out 2 weeks ago, that's why.
I was too excited to get to this show. So what I did was I wrote these. One of these stories is true, and the other one is false, and you've got to guess which one is fake. Which one is fake news?
Okay.
And
so you're gonna read me 2 stories, yeah?
Yeah.
Not
one
2.
Is true, another one isn't.
Okay, I get the concept.
I'm gonna see how gullible you are if you'd be up there with Carl.
Okay.
So in Toronto, this is the first story. In Toronto, there was
There is no Toronto. It doesn't exist. Next. Got it.
Sometimes the complaints will be false.
Yeah, in Toronto, yeah.
He does a lovely little wiggle to the camera, Brent, when he does that line.
Sometimes
I love the wiggle. In Toronto, there's a lawyer called Gary Hoy, and he had particular fondness for running into office windows to demonstrate how strong they were. In I think it was 1993, he tackled against a window on the 14th floor, seemingly just to impress some visiting law students. Apparently, the pain broke, and Gary plummeted to his death. In his eulogy, his managing partner, Peter Lawyers, called Hoy one of the best and brightest at the firm.
Could I just ask at this point the question? The story that's false, did you come up with it? Or is it a false story? Okay, I'm already got my answer, and I think that there's no way you would have come up with those details. Like I think I think that one's true. But anyway, go on. What's the second one?
So in 2009, there were 10 volunteers with severe skin pigmentation issues, and they were tested with a chameleon's, they're called nanocrystals, in an effort to help them clear their skin. So scientists in Utah, they were forced to find out if the chemical reaction which helps the chameleon.
Go on. Yeah.
Which to help, it could still be wrong. I could have just fake. Which
Yeah.
helps the chameleon to camouflage in different environments could be applied to humans. The results were ultimately unsuccessful and inconclusive, with many of the volunteers complaining of spells of extended sickness.
Well, I'll just say now, like in fact, I'm certain that the second story is false, and for a few reasons, apart from your breakdown in the middle of it. You took small elements of Ricky's fake story, like nanocrystals. He talks about
No, I didn't deliberately do that.
And then he said Utah scientists in Utah. No, anyway, I'm pretty sure. What do I win, by the way?
Well, you've won it already. I'm not sending you another Sylvanian family.
Oh, so I win a birthday present. Thanks, mate. That should be the minimum requirement for two long-standing friends. But the second one's false, mate. I know this.
Yeah.
I haven't heard the first one. I've not heard that Gary Hoy ran through. I honestly thought you were going to say Gary Forrestal, because I looked my name up. My name is very, very rare, but there is a lawyer in America called Gary Forrestal, a black lawyer.
Yeah.
That's the only other Gary Forrestal in the world, as far as I know, because on Facebook there are no other Gary Forrestals. So I thought you were going to say.
How bored were you looking up your name?
Oh, don't you start. You said. I think you said. I can't remember if it's last week or the week before. You said it a few times. You Google your name to sort of see what's out there. I never do to sort of see what amazing things are out there about me. I just wondered how many others of my name there are, because it's a very rare name.
Well done. You did win that. You're not as gullible as Carl. You wouldn't have believed intelligent crafts.
Nanocrystals was when I knew, because it's too similar to what Ricky's thing about the crabs and the little dust,
silicon chips,
silicon dust. So. But yeah, it's a good effort, actually. I'm quite impressed that you came up with two things that were, well, one obviously did have two things that were credible. Mars does, to be fair, he's very creative, so I'll give you that.
Thanks very much. This was also one of my favourite episodes of Educating Ricky.
Yeah, it's good.
Educating Ricky's really good.
He digresses so much. He starts with he ends up telling about 5 different stories, which are all good.
I just love enough is an anus.
Enough is anus. Actually, funnily enough, it's just coincidence that the show is this week, because we talked early on about when you hear things and they remind you of the show, or songs that were in Songs of Phrase and you expect them to. But I was just listening to a quite serious interview, and someone just said, look, we got to the point and enough is enough. And straight away in my head, I hadn't even listened to this show. It just was enough is anus. I can't hear enough is enough without it reminding me of the show. But
and the
what are we going to talk about?
Will it like a man or a woman? Will it?
But just about this, before we go on to Educating Ricky, to be honest, the stories that Ricky comes up with, that I'm absolutely certain Carl doesn't believe either of them. Now he says he believes the first one, but you can just tell there's just little micro reaction. You can just sort of tell the way he's saying it. He knows that's not true, but I believe he's going along with it for the purposes of comedy. Like, and again, that shows kind of Carl's deepness. But I don't think Carl thought that story was true.
Well, no, of course he did.
No, I don't think he did. Miles, if you listen, honestly, anyway, we won't argue too much about it because none of us can ever know. But if you listen to how Carl sort of responds. It's not like...
No, he goes like this. He goes, wow.
Yeah, I know, but even that is like just trying to come up with something to show he believes it. Like, he doesn't, because then when they get to the second story, he says that one's not true. Like, and it's an odd phrase. It's an odd phrase to use because I think he knows both are false. That's my anyway. We disagree, so it'd be interesting what listeners think. Please get in touch and say, do you listen again? I don't think Carl believes the crab story. I don't think he's taken in by it, and you can because the way Ricky's saying it as well, it's almost slightly giving away that it's false. He doesn't laugh, which he often does when he's acting, but he keeps pausing and just about to laugh but doesn't laugh, and he keeps sort of pausing. I think Carl knew that one wasn't true, but that's just my bit. But what do listeners think? That's an interesting point of debate. We won't get stuck on that. But
does anyone have a problem with the way that Ricky says umbilical cord?
Yeah.
It's the umbilical cord, isn't it?
Yeah, the only reason he's saying that is because he's kind of thinking on his feet, like he's trying to, like, so
he said it twice. He said that same word another time in another episode.
Oh, right. Maybe I think you can pronounce it umbilical, and it probably leans towards an American phrase, an American pronunciation, but umbilical cord, of course.
Yeah, it's like when Alan Sugar always says resume on The Apprentice, and it's resume.
Does he say I don't know.
Yeah, it does. Good show.
Well, rich people and their mispronunciations.
Hey, we're not getting into politics, mate.
No, well, I wasn't. But yeah.
Here's Starmer, that's a man.
Yeah, let's not get too political.
Down
with fascism. No, I think we can all agree on that at least. But yeah, so I don't. Anyway, I really don't think he thinks it's true. And the stories that Ricky comes up with, they are good. It's entertaining, and I am impressed that Ricky got through without laughing, because I totally believe what he said, that he practiced that pulling you out of the vagina about 10 times with Steve and couldn't get through it. So he kind of got through it. But again, Carl didn't believe either of them, I'm pretty sure. So they weren't that believable. I think they could have done a better job, but they did a good job.
This is the first episode where Carl, of course, taught us about going to serve tea and biscuits to the old people in the care home.
Yeah, I've got a point about so I love how Carl's best stories come from a segue to an unrelated story. So he's talking about hand reading an arse, but or being worried about their nails, and then we get that lovely, because they talk about it, they reference it on other shows again, but clean nails, he got to serve the old people's home, but it reminds me of the way, because the horse in house was just a segue. Carl was just answering a question about baby's development.
Yeah.
And he just segued to that horse in house, and you just get some of Carl's best anecdotes when he might come up with a story or have a story, but then go into a totally different story that's actually more entertaining than what he was going to say, and that's kind of a classic. And clean nails is kind of.
Can I ask you something? Do you think there's an argument to be said, right, that life, or certain parts of life, are more exciting up north compared to Southerners, like the whole? Because what do you define as exciting? Not exciting, but they're just so mad. Like Carl's stories, like when he's talking about the estate he grew up. Is that just a class thing? Is that just like life on a working class council estate, or is that just my friend Mike, Scouse Mike? He tells me absolutely mental stories, but that might just be a reflection of him and his extrovertism.
Yeah, he's quite extra. But I think you've got a point, actually. I've never really thought about it, but I think it's more to do with class. But I think up north, basically, people interact more with each other. So by definition, you get more stories about people's interaction. Like it in not I know we're not, I don't want to stereotype the whole South, but people are a bit more standoffish. Like you wouldn't have got the horse in house story probably, because you might have had someone with a horse in their house, but you wouldn't have had the interaction around it with the little kid. And so Miles, Carl probably never would have even gone to that house. I don't, obviously people in the South interact with each other, but I think people up north, they're more genial, they're more expressive, emotionally kind of, and yeah, they interact more. So I think there are more. So I don't think they have a more exciting life, but yeah, and it probably is a class thing as well, because working class people in London, and there's no problem with that. I'm working class in a way. They probably have similar stories, whereas middle class people in Cheshire, which is up north, they're standoffish, So, but yeah, it's a good point. I definitely think more like classic is Carl's. Like Carl has all these uncles, right, who aren't really uncles. But I can relate to that. I probably had one who's like, oh, this is Uncle someone, but he wasn't an uncle. But I can totally imagine up north and Carl like having all these uncles and Fred the Veg and all these stand hats down or whatever. I can't remember what it's called, but Jimmy the Hat, and they're all kind of uncles, but they're not, and
It's just a very old-fashioned way of living, though, that sort of EastEnders way where your back door's open and a neighbour can just walk in and just sit down. Almost like, like the royal family, classic working class Manc family. No, they're Manc, are they?
No, they're Scousers.
No, they're not Scout. I think they are. No, they're Manc, aren't they?
They're Scousers. I'm telling you. They're Scousers.
The royal family?
Yeah.
Keep talking and I'll find out.
Oh. Anyway, the royal family is great, and they kind of have people come and go from their house and open back door. I don't think that would happen in certain other places in the country.
No, I don't either. Like definitely Manchester. The Royals are Manchester. I was right.
Ricky Tomlinson is a Scouser.
Yeah.
He didn't put an accent on. He was his own.
But he may be a Scouser, but it's in Manchester.
Oh, okay, but they're a Scouse family, basically.
No.
Ralph was a Scouser. They're all kind of Scouse.
No, they're not. It's Manchester.
Well, I'm telling you, Ricky Tomlinson is Liverpudlian.
He is Liverpudlian.
And he didn't play a Manchester accent.
It doesn't matter. It's a work
class
family in Manchester.
But I'm just going. But Sue, I can't remember what her name is. Sue, she's also Scouse. So she was in Brookside, Brookside set in Liverpool. So
I love Brookside.
Basically, okay, it might be set in Manchester. That's fine, but I'm telling you, the two main characters are Liverpudlian.
That was pointless.
We've had a lot to cut this show already because audio issues. Like Miles kept having audio issues, so we had to kind of cut. So if it's a bit jangly today when you listen to the final edit, that's why.
It's okay. I listened to Louis Theroux's podcast and his was a bit jangly as well. So we're in good company.
By definition. Well, yeah. He do we have more fans than him, or
it's impossible to say at this stage.
No, I'm telling you, it's possible to say. We don't. Welcome back to the D Trout Spinners with Miles. Absolutely. Now we just left. We just sort of gone over the show and our thoughts about it and our thoughts about different aspects of it. But now we're going to come to what I think is people's favourite feature. I imagine. I don't know. It's one of my favourites. Our top quotes. Actually, I was just thinking there is no name for the feature. I was just about to say its name, but there is no name.
Top quotes is enough.
Top quotes. Okay, I'll start. You've got 5?
I've got 10.
Well, cut it down.
I can't. I'll list through
Okay, well,
them.
you start then if you've got 10. And
Okay. And
well-
he probably started eating
Yeah.
about Jono and Jono's fame and how this could happen to Carl.
Yeah, I had that as one of mine. I love it because this is an example of Ricky's where he goes into that he does that he pronounces words in a certain way. Just go through different mud. Just go through different mud, and he pronounces the T in different. Really, just go through different mud.
He does the same thing when he goes wullet like a bloke or woman. Wullet.
Yeah, he does, but that I think I prefer like
Yeah,
just go through different mud.
Number 9 was 30, but the camera's still on. I just think that's a really sweet thing.
That's good. Yeah. I've got unlike you.
Yeah.
Big big hairy head, unlike you. Great coat, Wiki.
The bison.
Yep.
At number 8, she was so shocked her hair fell out.
Yeah. That's I've heard that story as well, actually. I don't know if it's true. It might be apocryphal. They're not monkeys. They're lizards.
I love that one.
Mine
It did
are in
happen last episode as well.
Huh?
Didn't it happen last episode as well?
Yeah, something like it happens quite a few times and again, it's sort of like Carl deliberately says monkeys. He knows they're not monkeys, but he's kind of baiting that reaction from Ricky because he knows he's obsessed with monkeys. But
you're way more skeptical about Carl's. I've noticed this about you. You're way more skeptical about Carl's like playing down his intelligence than you know. I believe that. But
I wouldn't say I'm skeptical, but I think that Carl is far more aware of what he's saying and the impact it has, like how funny it is, what the way to say it, the pauses to leave. And yeah, I do think that, but I'm not sure. It'd be interesting. It's an interesting point because we're kind of slightly disagreeing on that today, which is good. I like to disagree. I mean, I don't like you anyway, so we don't get on. So no. But
I'll retract the Sylvanian family collection set.
Yeah. But no, we agree on so much that it's interesting when we get to a point where we disagree. And I'd really like to hear what listeners think about that. Do you think that Carl, for example, says they're not monkeys? Sorry, says the little monkeys, knowing in his head, kind of thinking, I'm going to say monkeys, and because Ricky can kind of come back to that and kind of say that it doesn't make it less funny, but I just think he knows. But what do listeners think? Anyway. Mine are in no particular order, but we've already mentioned this, but Phil Collins next.
That was my next one.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think we mentioned that earlier.
Phil
Collins next.
That's such a charming.
We've used that between us as well. Yeah, it's lovely.
My next at number 6, I've got look at my bloody hands, Reg.
Look at my bloody
hands.
Yeah.
I love the way. Yeah, and then Steve's laugh after that as well.
Yeah, very good. Actually, I'm running out because you've used quite a few of mine. Did you say, 30, but the camera's still on? You said that, didn't you? And I've got, and he probably started eating was my next one. Okay, so this is the last one I've got. It's a bit of a strange one, but, well, Ricky's saying they haven't hired you yet. And Carl goes,
yes.
Oh, I think they are going to, really sort of, he's playing in arrogance because he's not arrogant, but he's kind of playing up to that arrogance. So yeah, go scoot through your next ones.
I will. So this is now my top 5. And number 5, and the fella who can hand read an arse.
Hand read an arse.
It's that, ladies and gentlemen. I just that was his summary of the show. that was all that happened.
Yeah.
Number 4, it's a nice pause. He goes, pause. Put some stamps in your garden about snails eating glue.
Yeah. They talk about that quite a few times, don't they? I mean, I love the original when they're telling of that story.
Ricky does one of his best laughs after that moment. It's so funny.
Yeah, I've noticed actually the last couple of episodes, and I was going to mention it actually, but I haven't mentioned it. But and actually this is true for all of the episodes that we've done so far, but I've just noticed it more in the last 2 episodes. Ricky does this thing where Carl will say something or Steve will say something and he laughs, and then there's a pause. Carl and Steve carry on talking about what they're talking about. Maybe 10 seconds has passed, sometimes 15 seconds. You can sort of hear Ricky just sniggering. Then he bursts out in laughter again.
Yeah.
It's like a rolling laugh. Like he does this rolling laugh where it comes on, and then he stops, and then the rest of the show carries on. But he can't get it out of his head, and he just laughs again. And that happened quite a lot this show.
Oh, it does. He's so great. It's so great to hear. And number 3, Tom McGibbon of Bloxall Road.
Yeah.
You made a monkey of the man.
Made a monkey of the man.
And number 2, but Mick Jagger and Keith Richards would never do that, but they'd smoke other people.
Yeah.
I just think
That's a funny little story for Ricky to come up with that straight out of his head, like just as obviously bullshit. But
I think there's something about that last sentence, but they'd smoke other people's, that just really, it always gets me. And number 1 is they've got an awkward neck. Talking about the John, and Ricky goes, "What? No, I don't know," and they just start cracking up.
Yeah, that's funny. I also, your list interested me because I agree with a lot of your list, but I would have put it almost in the reverse order. Like all the your very funny ones were at the beginning. Anyway, so those are our top quotes. Do get in touch with us as to what your top quotes are. There are so many in the episode that we can't cover them all. So if you've got others, please, we'd love to hear them. But yeah, any sort of final thoughts on this episode to sort of sum it all up? The pressure here, but I wonder if you can do it.
A little bit. So at the end, as we come to the end of this episode, they're obviously getting ready for Claire Sturgis.
Yeah.
Ricky's going to go. They're going to have a little break, and the world needs a break because when they come back, it's kind of the next set of mad episodes.
Yeah. As I say, it's like to me it feels like a bit of a watershed. The show doesn't change that much, but I don't know why. In my head, it's like a watershed between 2003 and 2002. I don't know. A lot of features are introduced at the beginning of the new year. Some of them stick, some of them don't. Just think, we've done all these shows, right? We haven't even got to the beginning of Monkey News yet.
Yeah.
But we've got the beginning and all of Monkey News to come. Like, that's why this show's so good. And because you were saying to me earlier, where would I rank Do We Need Them in my list of top features? It's definitely up there, but there was only sort of 3 or 4 episodes of that. But yeah, Monkey News is probably my favourite, and we haven't even started. So it's like it's like kids at Christmas when you've got loads of presents to open. You haven't finished it. You've opened a present and it's great, but you've got like 4 sitting in the corner to open. That's how I feel about the show, So it's it's a very good episode. I know you particularly enjoy it. I really enjoyed it as well. I wouldn't say it's my absolute favourite, but yeah, very good. And please do let us know your thoughts on the episode online and on the listening post. And Miles will go through that at the end, but actually go through it now. How can they get?
Well, you can tweet us at Trout_D. Gary set that up. I don't know why. Or you can email us at Trout_D@gmail.com, or on Instagram at Duchess_Purnell. Or on Gary's personal number, which is 075. Whatever.
Out on radio before, didn't I? Because I knew we had so few listeners that it wouldn't make a difference.
Can you imagine if I've never found that? You have to change your sim.
Yeah.
So should we do a bit of XFM in the community?
Oh yeah.
This is when we invite listeners we read out listeners' feedback and just sort of general thoughts and. On the show generally. So this one is from Lucan, who is a new listener. He said, "Loving the episodes, lads. Doing my 3rd listen alongside you gents. Keep up the good work. It's the perfect companion for my job as a gardener. All right, see you later." He signs off in that brilliant, the Carl voicemail one. Because I'm running around like a sort of out for you. All right, see you later.
See you later. Who's that, Lucan?
Yeah.
Lucan, I guess if you're a gardener, you probably can still work, I guess. because you're outdoors, you're not interacting with people. So anyway, I'm just speculating, but
You're
I hope
looking at
you are.
people's safety. I like it.
Yeah, I always look out for Lucan's safety and all of our listeners. But thank you, Lucan. That's a nice comment. Appreciate it.
This is from Sam Locke. Just listened, who very kindly emailed us last week. Just listened to episode 16. Don't know what I thought about this week. This is the first time I've ever listened with an overly critical ear, and it was surprisingly different than just listening casually. There wasn't so many standout laugh out loud moments for me, which is usually my favourite part of listening. I did jot down how much do I get. I can almost see Carl's face while he's saying that to camera. And my absolute favourite from this episode, which was my one too, that I did belly laugh at, was you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. Do you know why? Because its neck's too long. No.
Yeah.
What?
Oh yeah, I know that. Yeah.
He wraps it up by saying, "I love that because in that moment, Carl is at his purest. I know 100% he is not trying to be funny at all. It all sounds like Ricky was originally going to follow up with a joke if Carl had just said no in response. But when he said that, it just completely confused Ricky and derailed what he was going to say."
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks so much, Sam, for your comment. I totally agree. There's many moments, far more moments than the opposite, where Carl isn't trying to be funny. I realise that, but I still think there are moments where Carl is deliberately saying something to be funny. But that is a great example, Sam, of where he absolutely, Carl at his purest is a great way to describe it. He's just saying the most kind of, it's like childlike, but it's quite logical. Like, yeah, his net wasn't, maybe that is why. Like, that's a great comment. Thanks, Sam. And yeah, it's interesting when you start to, because I listen to these shows for years, both of us have, and since we started to do the podcast, we've been listening with a critical ear. So, we didn't used to do that really. We just kind of listen. But it is interesting what different things you spot.
It definitely, like when I was doing my degree, and obviously I did film, but film was kind of ruined for me for a short spell of time. I could never just enjoy a film and sit back because I was like overly analysing it, especially for like my dissertation and stuff. Like you're looking at things that you can draw out for your essays and stuff, and it ruined film for fucking ages for me. Whereas I will never get bored of the shows, but obviously doing the experience of this podcast is kind of it's a different experience, but it's nice because we're voicing a lot of our thoughts that we've always just kept to ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And I said to you before we started, when we decided what we're going to do, we planned it, we hadn't done one yet. I said to you, I don't think this will happen, but I said if it ever gets to the point where it becomes like a chore to listen to the shows, then we should stop. Now, I'm so pleased that we're 16 episodes in and it has never become like a chore to listen to the show. But I was always like, it's that thing you say, you love film, but when you're studying film, and we're not studying the Ricky Gervais show, but we're putting together stuff for it for us. So it is kind of a bit like work without getting paid anything. But
and if you are studying for a BA honours in the Ricky Gervais XFM shows, you've passed. Well done.
We could teach that so well. But it's really interesting to listen with a critical ear, but it hasn't made it a chore at all. I don't know, Sam, maybe you've listened with a critical ear because of our podcast, and we're kind of going to talk about it, so you kind of listen more critically. And it's interesting that, Sam, we all think very similar things about the podcast, but we all think different. Miles, it was one of your favourite shows ever. Me, I thought it was very good, but not in my top 5 or so. Sam didn't really like it. So it's kind of, we still got something out of it, but it's interesting how people think different things. So anyway, I just wanted to say that. So you've got a last comment there, I think.
A last one and a long one. So stick with me. But this is from Yosef, who is a regular contributor to the show. So thank you for your response. I will get through this as best as I can. But really enjoyed reading this, and I'm looking forward to discussing it. Okay. So a couple of thoughts from me this week, chaps, after another hugely entertaining episode. Don't think it's been said enough that your chemistry on air is outstanding.
Thank you, Yusuf. Thank you.
Anyway, firstly, in response to Gary's appeal for views on Steve leaping out on the opportunity to bully Carl, I'm not sure I'm completely on board because I think they just had a mutually antagonistic relationship at this early stage. and that Steve just gets his licks in when he can before Carl starts on him about his appearance again. Back then, I imagine Steve would have been happy to have ditched Carl as a producer. He was much more Ricky's plaything than Steve's after all. I think he tolerated Carl and later saw dollar signs on him. Interestingly, they seem to have a more stable and genuine friendship these days. Steve recently said Carl was visiting him in LA. Having said all of that, I think Gary's right about the Fly B thing, and that's a very and there's a very similar example where Carl is asking him to explain the theory of relativity. Gervais, with his background and interest in science, gives a garbled explanation of it, but Carl actually pulls Steve up on his lack of a response, to which Steve, the film and literature graduate, hurriedly gives him some condescending bluster about not being able to explain it simply enough for Carl to understand it. I call bullshit. My other observation was just a minor one on the discussion you had about a possible XFM reunion, which I agree would be a terrible idea, and that Gervais in particular would be against it. I think Steve would be a key factor in this, because he always kept Ricky grounded on the radio shows. He'd take the piss out of his diet, his weight, laziness, etc. I don't think the ego of Ricky of today could stand it for a second. I'm 100% behind that, by the way.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm just. Is that the end of the comment?
That's it. Sorry.
So okay. Again, Yusuf, thank you so much. You spoil us with your observations, because you're a very, very deep thinker, and it's interesting. I totally agree. I don't think Steve wanted to bully Carl as such. It's not, bullying's the wrong word. It's absolutely mutually antagonistic. There's a great.
Steve knows that he couldn't explain the theory of relativity.
No. I'll get to that. This is a separate point. I'm talking about the bullying thing. So, yeah, it's mutually antagonistic. Someone on YouTube has put Steve versus Carl, and it's brilliant. It lasts about an hour, and it's just all the times that Steve and Carl have a go at each other. And actually, Carl in the series 1, the early episodes, was vicious towards Steve. He said some really hurtful things, like genuinely hurtful. So I think that's always in Steve's mind. But so I don't think it's bullying, but he's kind of like that little person who stands behind the big bully and goes, and the bully said something, and he goes, yeah, I agree, like just sort of agreeing from behind the safety of the big bully. And it's not, because it's the wrong word, bullying, because it's not bullying, but it was just an example. And yeah, that's a great example of another time that Steve almost panic. Steve kind of doesn't know as much as he claims to know, and but he'll claim he knows it because he's agreeing with Ricky. Like, oh, of course, everyone knows this theory of relativity. We all know it. Only because Ricky's sort of gone into it. So he does that thing of hiding behind Ricky. And you're right. That's an example of where it doesn't come off. It kind of it doesn't quite work. Yeah, I just thank you so much again. It kind of means a lot that you put so much thought and effort into your responses each week. And not to say everyone has to email or send in very long thoughts. It's great if you do, but also just any thoughts, just however long or short, we love to hear them. But once again, Yusuf, thank you so much. And your comments and this is the biggest compliment I could pay to you. Your comments have given me a lot to think about, which they always do.
That is such a good point as well about the ego of Ricky today. Like you've always said, like, there's.
Oh, yes, I didn't.
And in kind of funny way, I think one time you said there's a difference between fat Ricky and thin Ricky.
Yeah, well, so, like that thing, and they even joke about it when he is fat, and they say, I think Steve jokes about it at some point and says, you're funny because you're fat, but it's kind of like laughed off. But it's not that you can't, like, it's not that he was funny because he was fat at all, but he was, the more he started to care about his appearance, the less funny he's been. And yeah, I forgot to address that point for Yusuf. Yeah, the last point, sorry, because I was thinking about the other things you said. But yeah, no, I totally agree. And Ricky's ego would never allow it. And whereas Steve, for example, Steve will have an ego. Steve has an ego, but I think Steve's ego is well earned. Some people have got an ego, and they're not terrible with it, but Steve should have an ego. He's produced masterpieces of work and some very good work alongside it and some not so good work. And he's become very famous. So he has an ego. Carl kind of has a bit of an ego, but not really. But Carl and Steve would absolutely do it, but Ricky wouldn't. And I just think the dynamics, even with Carl and Steve, they just wouldn't be the same, you know. So I think it would never be the same again. That's demonstrated by the fact that even by the time they get to the podcast, which was only 2005 or 6, it's already falling apart. It's not the same. There's some funny moments, but it's not the same. And I think Ricky always needs to be caged by a radio station, because it's funny when Ricky nearly says the C word. It's funny when he talks about that thing where he wanted to just bleep out the vowel. That's funny. What's not funny is him actually saying the word. And he needs that constraint. So it would never work on a podcast. So he actually does swear a lot, and it just doesn't go with me.
Like a movie with, like, you know, indie directors who make their best movies under like tight budget restraints, with like really like unknown actors. Then you give them like a fuck off massive like Hollywood wad of cash, and like the resources are unlimited, and they can do anything. And as a result of that, the character like development suffers, narrative suffers.
And you're right, yeah, that's a good example. Probably I don't watch as many films as you. When you're given unlimited funds, it's when you're struggling and scrimping and saving, which is like being on XFM, you're constrained by rules. And the rule with the film would be you don't have the money to do things, so it's a rule that you can't. So you have to tell a story in a certain way. So it's much better, the podcast. So the XFM show is much better than the podcast, and that was in 2006. 2020 podcasting would never be this, and I almost wouldn't even listen. Like, I didn't watch Life on the Road because I want that memory of Brent. It's important to me. But with the podcast, I probably wouldn't even listen, because I might, because I'd be fascinated, but I don't want my memory spoiled.
I listened to Ricky Gervais is Deadly Serious, his podcast, and it is just it's so bad. Like, it's so disappointing. He has guests on, and they just have a chat, but it's just so. I don't know. I haven't got the vocabulary right now to describe it, but maybe we'll talk about it another time. Well, but it's
but again, it's kind of it's an interesting point, but I definitely think it would never work. But now, so thanks for all your comments, by the way. Please do send in comments again, and thanks so much, Yusuf. You put in so much time and effort into that, and really appreciate it. Now we're just gonna quickly go through our songs, because I'm introducing the feature this week, because I know it's coming and I don't like it.
Sweating before. So I'm gonna pick, and they played the Streets this week, and I love the Streets, and I was meant to see them live this year. A bit gutted because obviously they got cancelled. It's meant to happen in May. So I'm going to be playing one of my favourite street songs, which is called Blinded by the Lights. That's going to be in the D-Chart Spinners library. Every week Gary and I select a song each that we put into our Spotify playlist, which there'll be a link in the description. It largely consists of the hits of Oasis.
No, not always.
So these are our favourite songs that have been inspired by the shows, or just ones that have... some, or even just some that have just obviously been on the iPod at this particular moment in time. Gary, what are you going to pick?
Well, I've got my Miles. Your Sherlock Holmes abilities. I have got my iPod in front of me, but I'm going to pick a song. Actually, this song I've loved for a long time. Now I know what you'll think or say is like, oh yeah, no, everyone plays that. Everyone's, that's so been used, but. No, let me say, I was a fan of this song. I heard this song on a radio show that it wasn't even a music radio show. It was with George Galloway, believe it or not. And he played this song, and it was way back, like almost 15, 17, all the way back there. So I know it's been overdone now, but I still love it, and it means a lot to me. So it's Somewhere Over the Rainbow, stroke, What a Wonderful World, by Israel Kamakuiwa Ole.
Well done for getting that right.
I know his name off by heart. Israel Kamakuiwa Ole.
Yeah.
And Somewhere Over the Rainbow stroke What a Wonderful World. It's a mashup of those two songs, and it's just beautiful. And actually, I would urge you to watch the sort of documentaries about him. He's a fascinating figure and died very young because of his weight, basically. But he's huge, but played this tiny little sort of mandolin, sort of, I don't know what it's called, but little sort of,
ukulele.
Yeah, I think it might be, just with these huge fingers. And anyway, it's brilliant. So that's my song. This has been the D Trout Spinners.
Yeah.
I'm Gary. I don't want to say his surname.
Forrestal, celebrating his 36th birthday. If you have any birthday celebrations,
yeah, if anyone wants to send me any money or anything, that'll be great.
I've been Mars Pennell as well.
It's been a good show today. Next week, episode 17, so tune in for that. That'll be out. It'll be out. We're trying to put the shows out on a Friday, but sometimes it's Saturday, maybe Sunday sometimes. So, but we usually put them out on a Friday. So do check your inbox, your podcast inbox, however they
like and subscribe, 4 stars upwards. All right.
3 stars downwards from me. Thanks very much.
Thank you for listening. We'll see you soon. Bye.